Daniel
I can't
slammed his
believe
phone
you would
against the
lie
glass
straight to
table
my
so
face
hard it
after
rattled.
everything.
"Come and take your useless daughter," he shouted into the call, his voice shaking with rage. "I'm done with this marriage." Across the room, Amara didn't flinch. She stood still, arms relaxed at her sides, eyes fixed on him, not angry, not pleading, just watching. That silence irritated him more than anything. "Say something," he snapped. "You stand there every time like you don't even care." Amara's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Then the doorbell rang. Sharp. Unexpected. Cutting through the tension like a blade. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Perfect timing. "That must be your mother." Finally. He stormed toward the door, yanking it open without thinking. And froze. 3 black SUVs lined the front of the house. Their engines still running. Doors already open. Men in suits stepped aside in perfect coordination. Then she stepped forward. Tall. Composed. Impeccably dressed. Her presence alone felt like pressure in the air. Victoria Hale. Daniel blinked, confused for half a second before forcing a scoff. "So, you're her mother?" Victoria didn't answer immediately. Her eyes moved past him, scanning the house like she was evaluating it. Then she stepped forward without waiting to be invited. "Yes," she said calmly. "And I believe you asked me to come." Daniel frowned as she walked in like she belonged there. Behind her, a man in a tailored suit followed quietly, carrying a slim folder. Another woman lingered near the entrance, observant, silent. Inside, Amara hadn't moved. But something in her eyes had shifted. Not fear. Not sadness. Recognition. Victoria stopped a few feet away from her and held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary. "Amara," she said softly. Amara nodded once. "You came." Daniel looked between them, irritation rising again. "Okay, what is this? If you're here to take her, then take her. I'm not stopping you." Victoria turned her head slowly, finally acknowledging him fully. "And you are?" she asked. Daniel almost laughed. "I'm her husband." There was a brief pause. Not awkward. Not uncertain. Measured. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. "For now," she said. The words landed heavier than they should have. Daniel straightened. "Excuse me." Victoria walked further into the living room, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her gaze moved across the furniture, the walls, the decor. "This is where you live?" she asked, more to herself than anyone else. Daniel scoffed again, louder this time. "Yes. My house." Victoria stopped. Turned. Looked directly at him. "Is it?" she asked. The question was soft. But it hit like a challenge. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Of course it is." From the corner, Lila shifted uncomfortably. She had been sitting quietly, watching everything unfold, but now her eyes flicked toward Amara. Amara still said nothing. Victoria glanced briefly at Lila, then back at Daniel. "I see," she murmured. She walked toward the main sofa and sat down without asking. Daniel stared at her, disbelief mixing with irritation. "Look, I don't know what kind of attitude this is, but let me make something clear. This is my home, and Victoria raised a hand slightly. And he stopped. Not because she forced him to. Because something about her made interruption feel inappropriate. "I would advise you," she said calmly, "to be very certain of what belongs to you before you speak so confidently about it." Daniel laughed, but it sounded thinner now. "What is that supposed to mean?" Victoria leaned back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. "It means," she said, "that assumptions are dangerous things." Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Daniel turned to Amara. "Are you just going to stand there? Explain this." Amara looked at him, her expression unchanged. I tried, she said quietly. Daniel frowned. Tried what? To explain, she replied. You just never listened. That irritated him again, but before he could respond, Victoria spoke. Let's not waste time going in circles, she said. You called me here. You said you were done with my daughter. Daniel exhaled sharply. Yes. I am. Good, Victoria said. That threw him off. Good? He repeated. Yes, she said. Clarity is always preferable to confusion. She gestured lightly toward the man standing behind her. Mr. Rowan. He stepped forward immediately, opening the folder in his hands. Daniel watched, confused now instead of angry. What is all this? He demanded. Victoria looked at him with calm indifference. Just a few details, she said. Mr. Rowan slid a document onto the table. Daniel glanced at it briefly, then frowned deeper. What is this supposed to be? Victoria didn't rush her answer. The title deed, she said. To the house. Daniel scoffed instantly. And why are you showing me that? Victoria held his gaze. Because, she said, it doesn't belong to you. The words landed slowly. Like they needed time to settle. Daniel blinked once. Then again. Then he laughed. A full, loud laugh this time. That's funny, he said, shaking his head. Very funny. You think you can walk in here and, it belongs to my daughter, Victoria continued, her tone unchanged. The laughter stopped. Daniel's eyes moved from Victoria to Amara. Then back. No, he said flatly. That's not possible. Amara didn't look away. It is, she said. Daniel stepped back slightly, like the floor had shifted under him. That's... No. That doesn't make any sense. I paid for this house. Victoria tilted her head slightly. Did you? Daniel's confidence wavered for the first time. I handled the payments, he said. Yes, Victoria replied. From accounts that were not originally yours. The room went quiet again. Daniel's chest rose and fell faster now. That's not true, he said, but his voice lacked force. Mr. Rowan flipped to another page. Records of initial acquisition, he said calmly. Transferred under Amara Cole's name 3 years before your marriage. Daniel stared at the document like it might change if he looked long enough. It didn't. This is wrong, he muttered. No, Amara said softly. It isn't. He looked at her sharply. Why didn't you tell me? Amara's expression didn't change. I did, she said. In the way I worked. In the things I built. You just decided what you believed was more important. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, he didn't have a response. Victoria watched him quietly. This is only one piece, she said. Daniel shook his head, trying to regain control. No. No, this is ridiculous. Even if that were true, it doesn't change anything. I built my own business. I made my own connections. Victoria's gaze sharpened slightly. Did you? She asked. Daniel hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. Victoria leaned forward just slightly. Tell me, she continued, your largest contract last year. How did you secure it? Daniel frowned. What does that have to do with, answer the question. He hesitated again. Through a referral, he admitted. From whom? She asked. He paused. Then said the name. Victoria nodded once. I see. She leaned back again, completely composed. That company, she said, is part of the Hale Consortium. Daniel felt something drop in his chest. And the introduction, she continued, came through channels connected to my daughter. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Daniel looked at Amara again. But this time, something in his expression had changed. Not anger. Not irritation. Something closer to uncertainty. What is going on? He asked, quieter now. Amara held his gaze. This, she said, is what you never cared to see. Daniel didn't move. The room felt smaller now, like the walls had closed in without warning. He looked at Amara again, searching her face for something, denial, hesitation, anything that could anchor him back to what he thought was real. He found none. Instead, she looked steady. Like someone who had been standing in truth for a long time, waiting for someone else to catch up. That's not possible, he said again, but this time it sounded weaker, like he was trying to convince himself. Victoria watched him without sympathy, but not with cruelty either. Just observation. It is possible, she said calmly. It has always been possible. You simply chose not to ask the right questions. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing once, then stopping. So what are you saying? He asked, frustration creeping back in. That everything I've done, everything I've built, is because of her? Victoria didn't answer immediately. That pause stretched just long enough to make the answer obvious. Not everything, she said finally. But enough. The words hit harder than a shout. Daniel turned to Amara again, his voice sharper now. You let me believe I was doing all of that on my own. Amara's eyes didn't waver. I never stopped you from believing it, she said quietly. There's a difference. That stung. You could have told me clearly, he pushed. I tried, she replied. But you only ever listened to what matched the version of me you had already decided on. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because deep down, he knew that wasn't entirely false. Moments flashed in his mind. Times she had mentioned meetings. Investments. Opportunities. Times he had nodded without really hearing her, already assuming they were small, insignificant things. He swallowed. This doesn't change the fact that I'm still, he started. Victoria cut in, her tone still even. You are still a man who made a decision in anger, she said. That part remains unchanged. Silence followed. Daniel looked down at the table, then back at the documents. What else? He asked, almost cautiously now. Victoria gave a slight nod to Mr. Rowan. Another document was placed in front of him. Daniel hesitated before picking it up this time. What is this? He asked. Your prenuptial agreement, Victoria said. Daniel frowned. I know what that is. Do you? She asked. That irritation flickered again, but it didn't have the same strength. I signed it, he said. Of course I know what it is. Then you should read it again, she replied. Daniel's grip tightened slightly as he flipped through the pages. At first, his expression stayed neutral. Then it shifted. Subtly. A line here. A clause there. His eyes moved faster. Then slower. Then stopped. That's. He muttered. That's not, it is, Victoria said. Daniel looked up, his face no longer confident. This says the house, the business expansions, even some of the accounts. They're all protected, Victoria finished. In her name. He stared at Amara. You knew about this? Amara nodded once. Yes. And you were just going to. What? Let me walk away thinking I was leaving with something. Her answer came without hesitation. I was going to let you walk away with exactly what you brought in. That landed clean. No anger. No revenge in her tone. Just truth. Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of it pressing down on him now. So I get nothing, he said. Victoria tilted her head slightly. You get clarity, she said. Which, in your case, is more valuable than what you would have lost. Daniel let out a short, hollow laugh. Clarity, he repeated. Right. He dropped back into the chair, staring at the papers like they might rearrange themselves into something kinder. They didn't. The silence stretched. Then Daniel spoke again, quieter this time. "Why didn't you ever say it plainly?" he asked, looking at Amara. "Why let it get this far?" Amara took a breath. "Because I wanted to be seen without needing to prove anything," she said. "I wanted a partner, not an audience." Daniel looked away. That one hit deeper than everything else. Victoria watched the exchange, then spoke again, her tone measured. "The kindest thing that could happen to you now," she said, "is to discover what you are capable of without leaning on what was never yours." Daniel didn't respond. Because for the first time, he didn't know what that answer would be. Minutes passed like that. Heavy. Quiet. Final. Then Mr. Rowan placed one last document in front of him. The divorce papers. Daniel stared at them. His fingers hovered above the pen. For a moment, it looked like he might say something. Argue. Resist. But that moment passed. Slowly, he picked up the pen. Signed. The sound of ink on paper felt louder than anything that had been said. He placed the pen down carefully. No drama. No outburst. Just acceptance. He stood up, adjusting his shirt slightly, like he was trying to gather whatever remained of his dignity. His eyes moved to Amara one last time. There were 100 things he could have said. Apologies. Questions. Regret. But none of them felt strong enough to carry what had already happened. So he said nothing. Amara didn't speak either. She just watched him. Not cold. Not emotional. Just finished. Daniel nodded once, almost to himself, then turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached it, he paused for a second. Then opened it. And left. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. And just like that, it was over. No explosion. No chaos. Just a life. Quietly undone. The room remained still for a moment. Then Victoria exhaled softly and leaned back. "It is done," she said. Amara didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were still on the door. Not because she wanted him back. But because she was acknowledging the end of something she had carried for a long time. Then she turned. And this time, there was something new in her expression. Not restraint. Not patience. Clarity. Weeks passed. And everything changed. The same woman who once stood silently in a living room now walked into a boardroom filled with executives. No hesitation. No second guessing. They stood as she entered. Not out of obligation. Out of respect. "Good morning," she said calmly, taking her seat. At the head of the table. Across from her, Victoria watched quietly. Not directing. Not interfering. Just observing. The introduction was simple. "This is Amara Hale," someone said. And for the first time, the name felt complete. Not hidden. Not softened. Owned. Discussions began. Decisions followed. And Amara spoke, not loudly, not aggressively, but with precision. Every word landed. Every choice carried weight. There was no need to prove anything anymore. Because she wasn't stepping into power. She had always been in it. Now, she was simply standing in it fully. Later that evening, as she stood by the window overlooking the city, the silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Not heavy. Not restrained. Free. She took a slow breath, her reflection staring back at her, stronger, clearer. And somewhere, far removed from that quiet strength, Daniel sat alone in a much smaller space, staring at his phone. Scrolling. Searching. Trying to figure out where it had all shifted. But the truth was simple. It hadn't shifted. It had always been there. he had just never seen it. And that realization was something he would carry for a long time. If you've made it this far, you already understand the lesson hidden in this story. Sometimes, people don't lose you because you changed. They lose you because they never truly saw you. If that message hit you even a little, take a second to like this video. It helps more people see stories like this. And if you've ever been underestimated, comment "I know my worth" below. Subscribe for more powerful stories that remind you exactly who you are. Because the right people won't need proof. They'll see you clearly from the start.